Okay, so what is a recapture rate? What does it mean? And will I ever get 100%?
And why is it important?
And why is it important is good. And maybe like, how do I make it better? You could go there too.
Right. Well, let's start with what is it? A percentage recapture rate that can be turned into a report that can be plotted on a regular basis. Many times we recommend that we plot that on a monthly basis that aligns with the monthly billing services. It simply is a rate or a ratio that tells all of us, including billing company as well as the customer, how much water is being quote unquote recaptured in their submetering system versus how much water in total the utility is billing the entire property. So let me kind of dive into that a little deeper. So if you've got a 20 unit mobile home park, we'll use that as an example because that world of mobile home parks is where this gets probably more important than apartments or condos. If you've got a 20 unit mobile home park and all 20 of those residents have an individual submeter measuring their unit water usage, then in a perfect world, in theory, if there is no other water that is being used at the property that that is not going through one of those 20 submeters, then the amount of water captured on the 20 submeters should match the amount of water that the utilities meter is capturing, given that you're measuring the exact time period. So there's a lot said in that description there, and let's break it down a little bit. Let's start with the time period. We may bill a utility company for the 1st through the 31st of the month, but the utility bill happens to come from the 11th through the 10th. So if we run a percentage recapture rate and plot that on a report for our customer, we're going to need to rerun what and capture the readings on the 11th through the 10th so that we are exactly matching apples and apples what the same period of time is that the utility is using. So we're going to compare what the total sum is on our 20 submeters with what the total from the utility bill is, with the goal being that a perfect score would be as close to 100% of recovery, percent recapture. Now, what happens in the real world and why this may not be 100%? Let's talk about that. I think the first thing to highlight is there very, very well could be other water being used at the property that's not going through those submeters. Maybe the property has some landscaping that they irrigate in the spring and the summertime, and the water that's used for those is just on the utility bill, certainly, but it is not going through the individual submeters. So that's an opportunity then for some water to not be recovered. Maybe there's a laundry facility on site, or there's an office with a bathroom, and the toilet gets flushed and the sink gets run. And ideally, and we have some clients that do this, they want to add additional meters in the submetering system for irrigation or for an office that will capture that, because they want to be able to not have amount of water that's not part of that calculation. But other clients are happy to know, hey, I'm okay knowing that about 5% or 8% of my water every month is going to water the flowers or going to flush the toilet in the office's bathroom. So it depends on the client how they want that to work. Why that's so important, what makes this is so important is that if you establish a baseline, knowing that you've got that office with a toilet and you're getting 94, 95% of a recapture on a monthly basis, and all of a sudden the next month comes along and it's down to 82% or 74%, and sometimes even worse, that's telling you something's wrong. And especially at properties like a mobile home park, where so much of the internal plumbing infrastructure is on the property after the utilities meter, maybe underground, maybe with older pipes, a leak could be developed that is gushing into the ground, and you're spending money with the utility. It's going through their meter and you're paying for that, but it's not going through any of your sub meters. And so a change in that percentage recovery is what you are looking for. And that's why we provide that for mobile home parks and for other properties as they request. So we recommend that for mobile home parks. We recommend that we understand how it works for your unique property. So 95% may be a really good score for your property, and 82% may be a really good score for somebody else's property, depending on how that works. Lastly, I want to touch on some of the reasons why there could be some error that's built into this. So, and it's important to kind of understand what can cause that, that number to not be accurate. Certainly, and again, if I go back to my example of 20 meters, if one or two of those 20 submeters is offline, it's jammed, it's not recording usage, then you're going to have a lower percentage recapture simply because you're not fully recording all that usage. So it's also a kind of a backwards way of keeping you honest on making sure your hardware is fully operating. Another thing though, believe it or not, if you just kind of think about this, most of the reading systems that we install take a number of reads throughout the day, say every 4 hours or every 6 hours. And then a daily read is recorded, and it's typically the last read of the day. So maybe that last read that's in our system happened at 10 p.m. at night. But maybe and even though we're using that 10th of the month to coordinate with the utilities bill, maybe that driver was out at 7 a.m. in the morning and took a read at that utilities meter. And you think, oh, well, it's just, it's part of a day or most of a day. Well, one full day represents up to 3% difference based on when they read it and when we read it. So if we had all 20 meters that are read at 10 p.m. on the submetering system, but the utility bill is read at 7 a.m., you could be 2 or 3% off simply because of that. So that's a great example. Believe it or not, the meters in the submetering system are traditionally, and I want to qualify how I say this, but they're more accurate in terms of they have a higher resolution. We're very likely measuring down to the gallon. And the utilities meter, just by the fact that it's larger, it's 2 or 3 inch water line, they may only really have a resolution that's measuring at 10 or even 100 gallons. Sometimes they even only measure in 100 cubic feet, which is 748 gallons. So if we're coming up with a calculation on the submeters down to the gallon, but the utility is rounding every 748 gallons, that can also cause a little bit of fuzziness. But I want to be careful to say those are usually only 1 or 2 or 3% at most. But just understand that there's a little bit of math that plays into some of that fuzziness. Any other thoughts or questions, Elliot, about that?
No, it's really good. So would you say it's fair to say a recapture rate is almost never going to be 100%?
I think that I could say in practice that even if you believe you've fully metered all of the water being used in a property, that it's not always or ever going to be right at 100%.
Yeah.
And I think the key thing to emphasize, though, is you can't compare one property to another. What you're trying
Yeah.
to do is compare yourself month over month.
Yeah.
Use that as a good indicator. It is your gauge to tell you, is there
Yeah.
something wrong? Is there a leak out there that I need to go and get invested?
Yeah. So the most important thing is establish a baseline so that you can monitor for change. And we've experienced with clients who do this, and there's a big drop and they go find a line broken in the yard that nobody sees for months and months and months. And it's just hemorrhaging water. And so that's why this is so important.
And particularly if you're in the manufacturing housing, this is not little dollars that we're talking about. There could be $800, $1,000 a month of water going into the ground that you're not recovering from your residents. And that may mean you have to hire that really expensive leak detector company to spend $2,000 to have them come out and find that leak for you. And then you got to get it fixed. But boy, let me tell you, you have paid for that investment very quickly based on the cost of water running into the ground.
Yeah, really good. Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.